Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if the third Hokage left Kid Naruto in the sad villain with Temari, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please give me hype instead of comment and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. This was the conversation of an old man and a young child as they traveled through the desert together, along with 5 other individuals, all of whom were wearing masks. The old man had a rather wrinkled face, radiating wisdom, kindness, and power that any 5 men in their prime could only hope to match. He was wearing red and white robes with a funny red and white diamond-shaped hat, with the kanji for fire on the front of it. This man was Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage, leader, protector, and strongest man in Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves. The child was a 5-year-old red-headed boy, with the most entrancing eyes you could ever see, the left one being a beautiful sky blue and the right being a rather startling shade of violet, 2 whisker marks on his face, and lightly tanned skin. This boy was Uzumaki Naruto, orphan, scapegoat, and Jinchuriki of the second most powerful being in the world, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, or the 9-tailed demon fox. He became as such when the Kyuubi attacked his village 5 years ago on October 10, not even an hour after Naruto's umbilical cord was cut, forcing the 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato, to seal the demon into the child, his own son, though only about 5 people knew, at the cost of both their lives, literally with Minato, him actually meeting the Shinigami, and figuratively with Naruto, as he became Konoha's most hated resident, as many saw him as the demon itself and not as a child. They were on a journey to their ally, Sunagakure, the village hidden in the sand, well, the Hokage was. The 5 masked individuals were Anbu, Konoha's elite forces, acting as the Hokage's guards, and enforcers. Each had a different mask depicting an animal: Osu, boar, kame, turtle, keiru, frog, saru, monkey, and inu, dog, 3, and they were there as an escort. Naruto was there because Hiruzen didn't trust the villagers not to kill the boy while he was gone. When they finally stopped for the night at an oasis, 4 of the 5 masked individuals leapt away, with Inu simply staying with sitting down and talking to Naruto, as he was assigned to protect the boy pretty much since day 1. The old man then set up camp for them with a tent for himself and a smaller one for Naruto. He then went inside the tent, sat down in a chair that had been stored via the miracle of Fuinjutsu, pulled out a small orange book, and started to giggle like a small girl. After about 5 minutes, he suddenly felt a rather strong pulse of an unfamiliar chakra of at least Chunin level. When he rushed out of the tent, the first thing he saw was Naruto jumping around like a crazy person, while Inu simply stood there, his body language going back and forth between curiosity and shock. "I told you I could do it, Inu-sensei," shouted the boy, making the Hokage wonder at the implications. "Inu-san, what does he mean, sensei?" asked the Hokage to the suddenly sheepish Inu. "Well, Hokage-sama, I've been teaching Naruto-kun here for about half a year now, and when he told me he could access his chakra at will, I asked for a demonstration for," said the man in the dog mask, getting a frown from the aged Hokage. "Why have you been teaching him? You know that he's set to go to the academy in a year where he'll get all the attention and help he needs there," queried the old man, getting a disbelieving shake of the head from Inu, while Naruto went down to play in the water. "I'm sorry, but I must disagree with you on that, Hokage-sama. I've seen how people treat him, how they stare at him. The instructors won't give a damn about that boy, and I won't let them sabotage Sensei's legacy. You know just as I do, that all the other shinobi family children are probably doing the same thing that I'm doing. I just want to make sure that he has a chance to become the best shinobi that he can be," he said, getting a reluctant nod and a sigh from the old man. "Very well. If you wish to continue to teach him, then I will allow you to do so until he enters the academy, and maybe a little after that, unless circumstances prohibit such an event," said the red and white clad man, before going back into his tent, leaving the 2 to their own devices. Next day Sunagaker main gate. As the group of 7 entered the gates, they were met by 3 people, a man with red hair, teal eyes, and the same robes as the Hokage, but green instead of red. 5. A young boy with purple paint on his face, wearing all black and holding a small puppet, and a young girl with sandy blonde hair in ponytails who was wearing a kimono. She's pretty, thought Naruto, as he hid behind the Hokage with a blush. Welcome Hokage Dono, to Sunagaker. Said the man in the green robes, may I introduce you to my children, Temari and Kankuro. I'd introduce Gaara, but no one seems able to find him. Is there cause for concern? Asked the kindly Hokage, only to get a shake of the head. No, no, no. He disappears all the time. Suna's a big place, and there's plenty of places for him to be. I'm not worried, replied the Kazekage easily, getting a glare from the blonde girl, which he either ignored or he didn't notice. Hello, said Naruto to the blonde girl, still blushing, getting knowing smiles from the 2 cages and the adults present. Hi, she said to him with a smile, getting an even bigger blush. I'm Temari, what's your name? Yu Uzumaki Naruto, 6. It's nice to meet you Naruto-kun. This is Kankuro by the way. She told him, almost as if it were an afterthought, getting a pout from the purple boy. Hello Kankuro-san, why are you wearing makeup? Asked an innocent Naruto, getting laughs from everyone but Kankuro, who wanted to strangle him. It's war paint, he mumbled, though everyone ignored him. With that, the group began to walk into the village. After about 5 minutes, Naruto noticed a group of children about his age, give or take a few years, playing a game with a ball. This causes his chest to hurt remembering the fact that he wasn't allowed to play with anyone in Konoha, so he decided to see if these kids wanted to play with him. As he left the group, Temari was the only one to notice he was missing, everyone else being too caught up in listening to the cages talk. Hello. May I play with you? Asked the blonde boy timidly, already steeling himself for the harsh denial and hurtful words. Sure. We're playing soccer, 7, you can be on my team. A little girl told him. Really? Asked Naruto hopefully, before he became nervous and started staring at the ground. I don't know how to play. We can show you. I'm you. The girl told him, getting an ecstatic nod and an introduction from Naruto. After about 20 minutes of learning and playing, the ball was accidentally kicked out of the playing area towards a small red-headed boy with rings around his teal, pupil-less eyes, carrying a teddy bear. The boy picked up the ball with a hopeful expression on his face, and approached the children playing. Here. May I play with you? Asked the boy, holding out the ball, only to get fearful expressions from all the other children but Naruto. Get away from him. It's the demon. He's going to kill us all. With these shouts, Naruto flinched and got ready to flee, only to realize that the comments weren't addressed towards him, but towards the smaller redhead. At that point, a large amount of sand began to float up like a snake, causing the children to run away, only for one of the sand tendrils to attack you, getting a panicked look from everyone there, including the redhead. When the tendril was about 3 feet away from the child, a man with sandy brown hair and big, blue eyes, which made him look somewhat feminine, knocked away all of the sand, and stared at the raccoon-eyed boy with what seemed like disappointment, causing him to tear up, and run away, dropping his teddy. Naruto stared after the boy, remembering his own treatment in Konoha, remembering the hell that was loneliness, thinking of how all he wanted was a friend. While he didn't know why the people did these things, he determined that he wasn't going to let another person go through that, even if they were from different villages. With that thought, Naruto picked up the other boy's teddy bear and took off after him. While that may have been his thought, thinking is one thing, doing is another. While was able to follow the redhead, he was only able to do so because he was older, taller, and therefore faster, as the other boy went through twists and turns, through alleys, and unpopulated areas. After 20 minutes of running, the smaller boy finally stopped in a dead-end alley behind a dumpster, crying. When Naruto walked up to the boy, he started to scoot backwards while on his rear and screaming, "I'm sorry. Please, just leave me alone." When this happened, Naruto simply smiled and held out the teddy bear, getting a confused look from the other boy. "You drop this," said Naruto, without any hint of fear. After Naruto said that, the young boy asked, "Why are you being nice to me? It's not nice being lonely, is it? You look like you needed a friend, and I don't see why it shouldn't be me." The redhead at first didn't understand what the older boy was saying. When it finally processed, he felt the strangest feeling in his chest, a warmth that he had never felt before, except with his uncle. He then jumped at Naruto, hugged him and started crying, causing Naruto to drop the teddy bear as he hugged the boy back. "Gaara, are you alright?" At this voice, both Naruto and the now identified Gaara looked towards the entry of the alley, seeing Temari there. "Oni-san?" asked Gaara, shocked at the question, which she had never asked before. "Temari-chan?" asked Naruto, wondering what she was doing there. "Hey, what are you three doing over there?" asked another voice, before a person wearing a Suna Junin outfit appeared in a slight gust of wind, before realizing exactly who they were. Seeing Gaara, he immediately grabbed Naruto and Temari by the arms and started to drag them away, saying, "Temari-san, Chisaimanano, little one, you shouldn't fraternize with that thing. I'll forgive you this once because you're both young and one of you is foreign, but this is your last warning, don't let it influence you." "But he's my friend," stated Naruto, trying to get back to his first friend. "But he's my little brother," said Temari, trying to go to her sibling. As all this was happening, Gaara simply picked up his teddy bear, hugged it, and sobbed. "With the cages, Cage-sama, I found these two children, talking to the demon. I know that Temari-san is your daughter, but I don't know who the boy is. Is he yours, Hokage-sama?" asked the Suna Junin, as he walked up with the still struggling children. "Gigi, tell this Tem to get off, would you?" asked Naruto, getting sweat drops from everyone, including Kankuro and Temari, at his blatant disrespect to, arguably, one of the strongest men in the world. "Where did you run off to, Naruto-kun? And why am I just finding out about this now?" asked Hiruzen, aiming the second question at Inu, getting the young man to sheepishly scratch the back of his head. "I was listening to you, Hokage-sama," said Inu, getting a sigh from the old man. "Now, why did you run off?" asked Hiruzen. "I saw some other kids playing, and I wanted to join," explained Naruto, while Temari said that she wanted to make sure that he didn't get lost. "Naruto, I'm not mad that you ran off, I'm just sad that you didn't tell me," explained the old man, to which Naruto lowered his head shamefully. "Now that that's settled, how about we continue figuring out how to make our alliance stronger, Hokage Dono?" said the Cage, getting a nod from Hiruzen. Sunagaker. 2 weeks later. It had been a rather interesting 2 weeks for Naruto. Every day he would go out, followed by Temari, and find Gaara and try and get to know him. Gaara was weary of the two of them at first, but eventually opened up to them, and they'd play and talk until one of the Suna shinobi, usually a Chunin, came to take the innocent children from the clutches of the demon. Naruto and Temari would then be taken to the Cage's manor where they spent time with Temari's other brother and uncle, the man who had saved the girl the first time Naruto saw Gaara, and finally going to sleep before Gaara got back. The man's name was Yoshimaru, and he was the brother-in-law of the Cage. He was also the only person besides the Cage who was allowed to be alone with Gaara, everyone else being too weak to survive an encounter with the boy. He was also the person Temari loved most besides her mother, was the one who spent the most time with Gaara, and who taught Gaara everything. Then, the Hokage would come, take Naruto to the hotel, the blonde would train with Inu a little, and then they'd go to sleep so that the day would begin again. But this day was different. It started out as usual, with Naruto waking up, saying bye to Inu and telling the man where he was going. Since they were in Suna, it was believed that Naruto would be safe, so he was sometimes allowed to roam, meeting up with Temari, finding Gaara, and then doing whatever they so desired. But, each to the three children had a very bad feeling of this day. And whereas usually they could only play for a few hours, today, they were together even into the night. So, with the feeling getting worse and worse, they simply decided to go home for the day. This plan was ruined, however, when several kunai came, and were blocked by a startled Gaara's sand, only for around 25 Suna nins to appear, all of whom had cloths covering their heads and faces so that only their eyes showed. We have tried to warn you time after time, you must stay away from the demon. Since you didn't listen, it is obvious that you are in its thralls, and therefore must be purified. I only hope that you find peace in Shinigami-sama's embrace, stated the lead shinobi, a Junin, as he pulled out several more kunai, a motion copied by the others. When this happened, Temari was furious as to what the man had said, and was not shy in voicing her opinion. Gaara was saddened that these people were going to take his sister and his first friend away, and heard a voice in his head screaming for him to do horrible things to these men. Naruto was shocked at what they had said, mostly because they were the Kage's children, but also slightly because he was with the Hokage, and at Gaara's sand blocking the kunai. When the shinobi drew more kunai, he grabbed both Temari and Gaara's hands and took off running in the opposite direction, getting flashbacks of when the same thing happened in Konoha. Seeing this, the crueler of the shinobi laughed at this, and decided to humor the children, staying one step behind them, while occasionally throwing a kunai, getting the sand to rise once again. As the children were running, Temari kept trying to tell Naruto something while he ignored her, and Gaara was saying that they should leave him behind since, for some reason, he didn't want to see them hurt. After about 5 minutes of running, Naruto turned a corner, and realized that it was a dead end, but by the time they had turned back around, the mob was already blocking the entrance. What do we do now? Asked Naruto. Why wouldn't you listen to me? I told you that you should let me lead, yelled Temari. With that, one of the Chunins threw a kunai at them, only for it to be blocked by the sand. Then, there was the sound of a fuse burning, before an explosive note that had been wrapped around the handle went off, making Naruto and Temari go off in one direction, and Gaara go in another. Temari-chan, screamed Naruto, as got up, seeing her unconscious. Forgive me, but I must do this, said random Suna Chunin 12 feet, as he threw his kunai, only for Naruto to cover Temari, making it hit him in the shoulder. Aaaah, screamed the redhead. What the hell? Do it quickly. Are you trying to make them suffer? Asked random Suna Chunin 8 feet. Sorry. Random Suna Chunin 12 feet said quickly, as he pulled out another kunai, intent on ending the children's life. As he approached, time seemed to go in slow motion for Naruto. He looked at Gaara, who was currently curled in a corner, staring at them in horror as his sands protected him from the others. He looked at Temari, still unconscious beneath him. He stared at the Chunin, wanting to kill them for reasons he couldn't fathom. In that instance, something happened. Something clicked in his head, and he reached both palms up, pointing at random Suna Chunin 12 feet and focused his chakra. Once he did this, he felt himself getting warmer, before a beautiful red-orange orb appeared, hovering about half a foot away from his palms. Quote. 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 What am I supposed to do with this again? Naruto suddenly asked. Cut, shouted the director, me, from his place behind the camera. You're supposed to shoot the orb at random Suna Chunin 12 feet, and kill him. Why do I have to do that? Asked the boy, not really wanting to do so, as Gaara clutched his head in seeming pain. It's to protect Temari, and yourself, explained the director. Didn't you read the script? Not Ray, began Naruto, only to be interrupted by Gaara. You're breaking the fourth wall. You're breaking the fourth wall. Hey, sorry about that, Gaara, said Naruto, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. Anyways, action, shouted the director. With that, Naruto focused his chakra into the orb, and it shot at the Chunin, who, not expecting something like that, had no time to dodge and was hit, making a massive cloud of steam appear and block everyone's vision. When the steam cleared, it revealed a heavily panting Naruto, and the Chunin, who had somehow become a mummy. What? That was Shikuden, Scorch Release. How could that brat know it? Did the demon steal from Pakura-sama and give it to that boy? Questioned. Random Suna Chunin 5 feet. You little. I'll show you to steal from Suna. Shouted. Random Suna Chunin 19 feet, who went to stab the exhausted Naruto as he continued to protect Temari, only to receive a kunai to the back of the neck. What the hell? Who threw that? Asked. Random Suna Chunin 15 feet. When everyone turned to wear the kunai, everyone in the group immediately began to sweat and tremble. The woman was a fairly tall kunoichi. She was fair-skinned with pupilless brown eyes, had green hair that she tied in a bun on top of her head with a hair needle running through it and a pair of orange bangs framing each side of her face. Her attire consisted of a sleeveless, backless top and short tight pants, with 2 lapels on the front and the back as well as an obi around her waist, purple arm warmers which extend to mid-bicep, and bandages around her ankles. Pakura-sama. What are you doing here? Asked one of the suddenly nervous men. I sensed someone using Shikuden and decided to come investigate, since I'm the only one in the village registered as able to do so. Imagine my surprise when I come across several Chunins and a couple of Junins attacking 3 children, 2 of whom are the Kage's children, and 1 of whom is part of the Hokage's ambassadorial party. The now identified Pakura told the men, as several more red-orange orbs, which everyone, including Naruto, noticed were much larger and brighter than the blondes, began to swirl around her, making a few of the men run away, with the rest becoming extremely nervous. We just wanted to get rid of that thing and bar that, deny it the satisfaction of a friend, stammered one of the more terrified of the group, Random Suna Chunin 6 feet, hoping that cooperating would make it so that he didn't die a horrible, painful death. I see, then I regret to inform you that there is no demon here. Now please leave so that I don't have to do something drastic. Sated the woman, making over half of the group to disappear, while the others frowned. Did I stutter? Please leave. Now, said Pakura firmly, getting glares from a few of the shinobi that were left, and one to step forward. I'm sorry, Pakura-sama, but if you're defending that thing, then it obviously has you in its thralls as well. You must be cleansed as well. Goodbye, said the man, getting nods from the rest, who then attacked the woman, who sighed and killed them all, just in time for a group, including the Kages, to show up on the scene. Pakura, what happened here? Why are all these men dead? Asked the Kage, getting Pakura to stand at attention. Sir, Kage-sama, sir. I was walking home from dinner, when I felt the use of Shikuden chakra. Knowing that I'm the only one registered as able to do so, I immediately investigated, and found several Chunins and a pair of Junins attempting to kill the demon and cleanse its friends. I killed one as he was attempting to kill the whiskered boy with a kunai, and the rest as they attacked me after I warned them to go away, them stating that I was in the demon's thrall, reported the green head, getting shocked looks from everyone. Upon hearing this, the Kage immediately went over to the children, kneeled down, and asked, so which one of you did it? Which one of you made a red ball that made someone do that? He questioned, pointing at one of the still steaming men, getting looks from the children before Temari and Gaara pointed at Naruto, who had raised his hand. Interesting, and how did you do that? Asked the man, getting a shrug from Naruto, who then tried to explain. I felt scared when Temari-chan was hurt, and then I knew how, said Naruto, not really knowing how to explain it with his adolescent mind. Sounds like what happened the first time I used it, mused Pakura. What's your name, boy? Uzumaki Naruto, responded Naruto, finally catching his breath. Uzumaki. Interesting. My great-grandfather was an Uzumaki, he had it, and I'm the only one in my family to get it since. Said Pakura to herself, shocking everyone but the Cage. Well, if that's all, we should get Temari-chan and Naruto-kun to the hospital. Said the Hokage, as he picked up Naruto and the Yoshimaru picked up Temari, and they left the area, leaving the Anbu to clean up Pakura's mess. Sunagakur Main Gate. 1 week later. It was a rather sad time for the Hokage, as he was saying goodbye to Naruto. Not forever, mind you, simply for a year, until he was trained in his Shikuden by this, Pakura, woman. Why a year, you ask? Because Naruto was due to begin his stay in the academy then. Looking back now, Hiruzen sighed as he and the Cage had reached an agreement on how to strengthen Suna's relations with Konoha. Flashback no Jutsu. Cage's office. I have an idea on how to improve the relationship of our village. Said the Cage from his place behind his desk, the only people in the room being himself and Hiruzen. Oh, and how is that? Asked the Hokage, already knowing the answer, but still dreading it. Political marriage. Between Naruto and Temari. Answered the green-clad man, confirming Hiruzen's fears. I understand Naruto, he has a Keke Genkai that is thought exclusive to Suna, but why Temari? Because she is my daughter, I couldn't ask someone else to do what I couldn't, plus the two of them seem to have hit it off. He replied easily. I don't know, Naruto-kun may never forgive me for something like that. Plus, there are things you should know if such a thing were to happen. Such as? Wondered the red-haired man, honestly curious. For starters, Naruto is the Jinchuriki of our village and the Kyuubi. If there is a marriage, for political reasons, they will have to live in Konoha. Said Hiruzen, getting a shocked look from the Cage. Interesting. But inconsequential. If Temari must leave, then so be it. However, any children they have, must be given the option to become Suna shinobi, especially if they get the Shikuden. The Cage told the man, getting a nod before he continued. I will say this though, he will need training to control his gift, and what better person to train him than someone with the same ability. I propose that he stay here for a length of time to train under Pakura. I also know of your academy, and I feel as though it is too soft, so I want you to give Temari private tutoring, especially in whatever her elemental affinity happens to be. I suppose, but he can only stay here a year before the academy starts in 1 year. I see. That should be more than enough time for Naruto to learn the basics. Very well, acquiesced the old man, before the two of them started hammering out the exact details of the arrangement. Flashback no Jutsu Kai. After he snapped out of his daze, the kind old man looked once more at the small boy who was one of his favorite people in the world, who was jumping up and down at the prospects of becoming stronger. Goodbye Naruto-kun, I can't wait to see you again. He told the young boy, getting him to calm down, and smile at the man. Don't worry Gigi, in 1 year, I'll come back home, and I'll take that pointy hat from you. I have no doubt that you will, Naruto. Now, stay safe, and don't forget to write. I will Gigi, see you in a year. Said the boy, as he reached up and hugged the old man, a gesture that was returned warmly. See you in a year. With that, Naruto watched as the Hokage left, wondering what the next year was going to bring. With the Hokage's party, Hiruzen noticed that Inu seemed slightly depressed. Inu-san, is something the matter? He asked, getting a sigh in response. It's just that, I don't know, you only gave me permission to teach Naruto-kun less than a month ago, and now I can't do that. He replied, getting a shocked look from the old man. Really? Strange, I had forgotten all about that. He said with a laugh, getting a sweat drop from Inu and all the other Anbu. Konoha Main Gate. 1 year later. It was a slightly funny scene, for those who could understand. At the main gate of Konohagakure no Sato, with the cage arriving with several masked individuals, one green-haired woman, a man drunkenly stumbling, and 3 children, 2 redheads and a blonde, being greeted by the Hokage, and a young man with short brown hair and beard, smoking a cigarette, his son Asuma, who had just come back from being one of the Shugonin Junichi Guardian Shinobi 12, this scene being almost an inverse of 1 year ago. As they were approaching, Naruto, who was looking forwards to talking with the old man, was having flashbacks of the various things that had happened in the year. His first training session. Flashback no jutsu. 1 year ago. It was the day after Hiruzen had left, and Naruto and Pakura were about a mile outside of the village. "What are we doing here, Pakura-sensei?" asked Naruto, who was sweating up a storm from the heat while the woman was standing there like she was standing in the most temperate climate imaginable. "We are here to train you in the Shikuden, a purely offensive Kekkei Genkai, even if you use it to defend. I want you to know that no matter where you hit a person with this ability, you are ruining their day," she told him, getting a nod and then a confused look from Naruto. "What's a Kekkei Genkai?" he asked. Sighing, Pakura explained all that he needed to know: elemental affinities, chakra papers, types of Kekkei Genkai, and which elements made up Shikuden, fire and wind. 8. "So we're related?" asked Naruto, with a hopeful look on his face, before it came crashing down around him at her reply. "Not enough to count, kid, sorry." After about 20 minutes of sulking, Naruto asked another question. "Are you going to teach me anything else?" While her immediate answer should have been no, after some consideration, she decided that it might be a good thing to teach someone what she knew of being a shinobi, because, hey, if he became famous, she could brag about being his teacher, and if not, then he would fade into obscurity, and no one would ever know. "Tell you what, brat, you master Shikuden to a level 1 deem acceptable, and I'll teach you a few more things." "How does that sound?" asked the woman, getting an enthusiastic nod from the boy. "Now, I want you to think back to when you first used this ability. I want you to try and feel that warmth. I want you think of whatever it was that made you do it." As she said this, Naruto attempted to do as she instructed, only to fail each time. After about 5 minutes, Pakura stopped him, and asked what he was doing. "I'm doing exactly what you said to. I'm trying to make it come out," he told her, getting a shake of the head. "Relax. Take a deep breath, try again. Don't concentrate too hard or you're going to pop something. Just focus on the same warmth you felt a week ago," she told him, before pulling out a Kwani. "And if that doesn't work, we can skip right to the drastic measures." Paling rapidly, Naruto immediately did as she instructed, finally getting the red orb to appear. "Wonderful. Now we work on control. See if you can get it to move." Flashback no Jutsu Kai. The day he learned of his burden. Flashback no Jutsu. 10 months ago, Naruto was sitting in the living room of the Cage's mansion. It was around 8 at night, and nobody else was there but him and Yoshimaru. He was feeling rather down, because the villagers had been meaner than normal to Gaara that day. Seeing that something was amiss, Yoshimaru, being the kind man that he was, asked what was wrong. "Why are people so mean to Gaara? He hasn't done anything wrong. They treat him like the people back home treat me," Naruto admitted, making the effeminate man remember that Hiruzen said Naruto was a Jinchuriki, but didn't know it. After thinking about it, he decided to tell the truth of whatever question the boy asked, but wouldn't tell him anything if he didn't. Gaara is what is called a Jinchuriki, meaning, the power of a human sacrifice. That means he has one of the 9 Biju sealed inside of him. That's what gives him his control over sand, and why so many people, including Kankuro, fear him. They see him as the demon and not as himself. But he isn't a demon, just a small boy with a terrible burden. He has a demon sealed inside of him. But he isn't a demon himself. Am I a Jinchuriki? I am treated the same way as Gaara. Does that mean I have a demon in me too? Am I a Jinchuriki? Naruto asked Yoshimaru, getting a sigh and a grim look. Yes, Naruto, you are. Hokage-sama told us that what you hold is the Kyubi, the nine-tailed fox that attacked your village on the day of your birth, leading to the fourth Hokage sealing it into you. Does that mean I am a demon? Am I just a monster that attacked the village? Asked Naruto, getting a shake of the head. Of course not. You are simply a young man who has had too much sadness in his life. Answered Yoshimaru, before he struck a pose that suggested he was deep in thought. I am curious as to how you don't know this though. You have the most powerful demon sealed inside of you while Gaara has the weakest. Your seal must be very good to hold such power. I mean, Gaara's seal is too weak to hold his, which is why he can't ever sleep. What's a seal? Asked Naruto, wanting to know if he could help his friend in any way possible. A seal is a product of Fuinjutsu, an obscure branch of the shinobi arts that is considered one of the most terrifying, and one of the most difficult to learn. It is where you take one thing, and put it into another. With it you can make anything from sealing scrolls to barriers to jinchuriki. Explained Yoshimaru. Can you make a seal better after it's made? Asked Naruto. I don't think so. I mean, you can reinforce it with more seals, but other than that. Why do you ask? Because I want to know if I can let Gaara sleep. Answered Naruto with the utmost determination. I don't know if you can do something like that, Naruto-kun. Our best Fuinjutsu expert made Gaara-kun's seal and even then it's faulty. Your seal was done by the fourth Hokage himself, one of the greatest shinobi ever to exist, and a true Fuinjutsu master. Then that's even better. If I want to be the best Hokage ever, then I have to surpass all of them. Shouted Naruto. Very well, Naruto-kun. I'll see if I can convince Chiyo-Basama to teach you. 1 week later. Alright, where is this brat? I don't have all day. I need to get back to fishing. Hearing this, Naruto and Temari decided to investigate. Please be patient, Chiyo-Basama, I'm sure this won't take long. Said the effeminate man, hoping to not piss the old woman off since she could still kick his, even with her advanced age. Hello? Asked Naruto, startling the two adults slightly, causing them to look at the two children. Is that him? Asked the old woman, getting a nod from Yoshimaru. Very well. She then knelt in front of Naruto. Why do you want to learn Fuinjutsu? Probably just a phase. Why did I come here again? Oh yeah, Yoshimaru-kun is pretty much the only person I can stand and he asked a favor. Wait, has the kid been talking this whole time? I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Gaki? She asked, to which Naruto huffed and told her again. I want to become the best Hokage ever. To do that, I need to become even greater than the Yodime, but to me, that'll just be a bonus. I mostly want to help Gaara. He can't sleep, and his Biju offered Yoshimaru. Yeah, Biju tries to make him not be him. I want to help him because he is my first and best friend. Naruto finished answering honestly, determination shining in his eyes, making Chiyo stare at him in wonder, before she gained a small smile. So he just wants to help Gaara, Maybe he can undo my mistake. Very well, Gaki, I'll teach you, but I can only teach you from 6:30 to 9. She told him, earning an excited nod from the boy. Flashback no Jutsu Kai. And the day his more interesting sensei showed up. Flashback no Jutsu. 9 months ago, Naruto, after a long day of training with Pakura, was walking back to the Casecage's estate. Currently, he was walking through one of the seedier parts of town in a shortcut, hoping to get back before it got too much darker. As Naruto was walking outside of a bar, suddenly, the doors burst open as a person was thrown through them. After about 5 seconds, a man walked out of the bar surrounded by several others, both shinobi and civilian. He was a tall, muscular and pale-skinned man with straight black hair, which was slicked back and gathered on the back of his head, where it was kept in a bun, hidden away by a white cloth with ruffled edges secured by a similarly colored strip. He had slanted eyes, each bearing 4 tattoos under each, and which were topped by black, arched eyebrows. Hanging from his ears were a pair of light brown earrings, which looked like gourds. His outfit left most of his muscular torso exposed, instead covering his arms and shoulders with dark blue armor plates, which joined on the upper part of his back and are topped by a wide, arched armored collar in correspondence to his nape. Covering his legs were a very baggy pair of dark pants, which ended below his knees, where it gets tighter, and sports large, light motifs reminiscent of flames on the legs, outer edges, and circling his waist was a light sash tied on his left hip, with its long edges left hanging and gourd hung on a string of his right hip. On his feet were a pair of dark, plain Chinese-looking shoes with light soles. 9. Suddenly, the man started screaming about, getting wild, and dropped into a rather weird stance, where he bent his knees and diagonally stretching his arms upwards behind his back, making it look like he was about to start flapping them. When the other patrons started to attack him, the man started dodging their attacks, swinging to and fro, seemingly at random, but without wasting a single move. After each dodge, he would strike one of his opponents, with a hard fast blow of the palm, usually taking down the opponents in one strike. While this was happening, Naruto was simply standing there, amazed by the display. After defeating all of his opponents, the man fell on the ground and started snoring, and Naruto cautiously walked up to him, picked up a discarded katana sheath, and started poking the man. 5 more minutes, mommy, I don't want to go to school, mumbled the man, getting a sweat drop from Naruto, who just started poking the man harder. Stop, stop, please stop, you can stop now. I'm getting pissed off. Stop, damn it, shouted the man as he sat bolt upright, grabbed the sheath, and snapped it in half. Looking around for his assailant, he noticed the small red-headed boy looking at him in what seemed like awe. What do you want, Gaki-chan? Slurred the man, getting a tick mark to form on Naruto's head, before he decided to introduce himself. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the next Hokage. How did you do that? Name's Bacchus. Do what? He asked, getting a deadpanned look from the boy, who indicated all the unconscious people around them. Oh, that. Like the chop hanging palm, 10, do you? He asked, getting a nod from the boy. Can you teach me? The boy inquired. After thinking about it for about 30 seconds, Bacchus' liquor-soaked brain couldn't really find anything wrong with doing so, so he simply nodded. Really? You promise? Asked Naruto. I promise. Now run along and let me sleep, replied the half-man, as he passed out in the middle of the street and a group of bodies. Sweat dropping, Naruto, being the nice person that he was, decided to bring the man to the cage's place, so he wouldn't sleep on the ground, and started to drag the man away. Took him an hour, rather than the regular 5-minute walk it should have been, by the way. The next day, pain was the first thing that Bacchus registered as he woke up. My head. I need to get a drink or something. Wait, the ground here is weirdly comfortable. Where the hell am I? Mused Bacchus aloud to himself. I'm glad you find my couch comfortable. Now would you mind telling me what the hell you're doing in my house? Asked a voice. As Bacchus turned, he immediately turned paler than a ghost as he recognized the man glaring down at him, but not the small red head with the teddy bear behind him. Kage-sama. Yes, now give me one reason I shouldn't kill you. Wait, shouted Naruto as he came down the stairs. Naruto-kun, asked the leader of Suna with a raised brow. That's my sensei, said the boy, getting surprised looks from the two men, as well as Temari and Kankuro, who were just coming down the stairs. What do you mean, sensei, Gaki-chan? Asked Bacchus, the night still hazy in his mind. You promised that you'd teach me the chop hang. Started Naruto, unable to remember the exact name of the technique. Chop hanging palm? Asked Bacchus, getting a nod from Naruto, causing the man to sigh and ask, did I really promise? Getting another nod. Well, if I promised, then I guess I have no choice but to teach you. Yada. So, after a little more explaining, during which Gaara explained that he watched Naruto drag the man in during the night, the group had breakfast, and then Naruto and Bacchus made their way to Naruto's usual meeting place with Pakura. When they got there, Bacchus immediately shot over to Pakura and started hitting on her, only stopping when she threatened to mummify what made him a man. Now, would you mind telling me why you are here, Bacchus-san? Inquired the woman. I'm here to teach Gaki-chan here my taijutsu style, chop hanging palm. He told her, getting a shocked look from the woman, who had been considering trying to find Naruto a taijutsu teacher. After a few more minutes of conversation, they decided on a plan for Naruto's training. He would train in the Shikuden from the normal time of 5 a.m., stopping at 11, and then he'd train from noon to 6 with Bacchus, leaving him time for lunch and time afterwards for study with Chio. Now, the chop hanging palm is a style that utilizes nothing but the palms of your hands, focusing on three things: power, speed, and accuracy. Now, usually, you only focus on two of these things, and the third one falls behind. I, however, use all three equally, making it even deadlier, and I will teach you to do the same. Now, the best part of this style is when one uses chakra along with it. If you focus chakra into the palms, you are able to make your strikes even more devastating, and if you use elemental chakra, then it's a whole another ballpark, allowing you to use a plethora of ill effects, killing a person without even breaking the skin. I, for example, use Raiden lightning style. With each strike, I can cause anything from paralysis, to muscle spasms, to nerve damage, or even heart failure. Doden earth style petrifies the organs and muscle tissues within the body. With Sweden water style, because the body is made of water, you have a higher chance of causing ruptures or internal bleeding, or even drowning your opponent on dry land. Futon wind style simply shreds the person from the inside, and if you have enough control, you could sever single arteries, or make their organs paste, while finally Kaden fire style is able to burn the person's organs and muscles. Master it normally, and I'll teach you the advanced stuff. The version that you saw, you're required to be drunk, but I don't really feel like teaching that to a 5-year-old. He told Naruto. Naruto then nodded, before doing everything that he was told by the drunk. After they got back to the mansion, it was agreed that Bacchus would stay there until he finished teaching Naruto. It was pretty funny when one time, Bacchus drunkenly hit on Yashimaru, thinking him to be a female. Flashback no Jutsu Kai. Welcome to Konoha, Kazekage Dono, said the Hokage, before they exchanged the obligatory political small talk, with Naruto introducing Gaara and Temari to Asuma. Hello Asuma-san, I'd like you to meet Gaara and Temari-chan, said the taller redhead, getting a smirk from the smoking man. Oh, is this your girlfriend? He asked, getting a contemplating look from Naruto before he simply shrugged. If she wants to be, he answered honestly, getting a blush from Temari, neither knowing yet of their future. Hokage's office. When the group got to the office, the Hokage ordered everyone but the Kazekage, his children, Pakura, Bacchus, Naruto, and Asuma to leave the office. After the obligatory bitching from their guards, they got straight to business. Now, Naruto, do you know why Kazekage Dono allowed you to train under Pakura for a year? Asked the Hiruzen, getting a shake of the head from Naruto. It is because you and Temari are to further relations between Suna and Konoha, replied the old man, getting curious looks from the three children. The two of you are to be in a political marriage, said the Kazekage, shocking the children. What do you mean? Asked Naruto, not really understanding the implications. It means that you and Temari are to move into a house that I prepared for you, go to the academy, and once you both reach Chunin, you are to be married. If you wish to have children, so be it, but it will not be required. Explained Hiruzen, making Gaara start to cry. Does that mean I won't see Ni-san, or Nei-chan again? He asked, terrified of the prospect. Of course you will, Gaara-kun. You just won't see them as much. I'm sure they'll visit and write at every opportunity, said the Hokage, as the Kazekage watched apathetically. Why do I have to stay here? Why can't Naruto stay with us? Asked Temari, sad at having to leave her home. Well, you see, it's because of the Kyuubi, isn't it? Asked Naruto, interrupting the Hokage, getting a panicked look. How do you know about that? Demanded Hiruzen, before the heterochromic boy told him about Yoshimaru and his decision to learn Fuinjutsu. I can even make sealing scrolls and exploding tags, isn't that awesome? Asked Naruto, getting a smile and a nod from the old man. After all things were explained to them, the meeting went on smoothly, and afterwards, they were taken to the house that the Hokage had given them, as Naruto's apartment was much too small for 2 people, let alone 2 people expected to start a family. It wasn't really much, a 2-story house with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, an office, all the standard things. As soon as they stepped in the front door, Bacchus went over to the couch yelling, "Dibs," and fell face first on it, falling asleep, almost instantly. After a brief tour of the house, the future couple said goodbye to the adults, getting a notice that the academy was starting the next day, before they went about their business. After they were gone, Temari simply stared at the door, unable to fully comprehend the fact that she was pretty much on her own with Naruto. She didn't really count Bacchus, because he was an alcoholic. Turning to Naruto, she was startled to see that he was smiling with a far-off look in his eyes. Naruto-kun, why are you thinking about? I was just thinking that I like the way our future looks. What do you mean? Don't you know that we're on our own from this point? She asked, getting a shake of the head from Naruto. We're not alone. You have me, and I have you. He said, getting a blush and a smile. And we have Bacchus, and Gigi, and Tsukiyoji-san, and Ayame-ni-san. There's also Gaara, and your 2-san. He finished eagerly, getting Temari to think, before she nodded and began to explore the house more thoroughly. That night, it was around 9:30 p.m., with Naruto sound asleep, when he was awakened by the sound of Temari opening his door, as she had been sleeping in another room. Can I sleep with you? She asked. It's too cold, and I can't sleep, she told him, getting a nod from Naruto, prompting her to climb into the bed, snuggling up to his rather warm body. Must be from his Shikuden. She pondered in her head, before falling into the peaceful abyss of sleep. And that's the first chapter. Please review. I don't really like the conversation with Chio, because I couldn't really think of any way to prolong the conversation. I believe that while Temari may have cared for her brother all her life, she wasn't allowed to show it, with it only being after the Hokage dies, that she is finally able to express her sisterly affection. Now, before you say anything about how Naruto was able to use the Shikuden at will so quickly, may I remind you that Haku was able to use her Hyoten ice release without any prior ninja or chakra training. And before you say anything else, yes, I said Shikuden a lot, there were a lot of flashbacks, and Naruto had teachers coming out of the woodworks to teach him. Screw you if you have a problem with it. Wow, I say things like that a lot, don't I? Screw you if you have a problem with it. Do you think I'm just jaded, or am I justified when I say things like that? Maybe I should see a psychiatrist or something. Oh well, you don't really care about that, now do you? No, you don't. You just want me to shut up and write the damn story, don't you? Well, I think. Never mind, I just lost my train of thought. While Naruto will be starting the Uzumaki clan, it will not be like Black Blood where he goes to Uzugakure, finds stuff, and has Uzumakis show up at Konoha. It will just be him and Temari until they have children. Just so you know, Kankuro spent most of his time with the Puppet Brigade, so Naruto never really got to know him. Temari had her own training, and Gaara spent most of his time outside the Hokage's manor. I will say that I meant to have a flashback where Temari kisses Naruto on the cheek after they have a spar, but I'm terrible with emotions, so I'd probably just it up. Omake. Naruto's jumpsuit. Based off Iseukami's It's True on DeviantArt. It was a beautiful day in Konoha, and 6-year-olds, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Kiba were hanging out at the park. Suddenly, Kiba asks the two others to wait where they were, while he goes and gets something. What do you think it is? Asked Naruto to Shikamaru. It's too troublesome to think about, answered the pineapple-headed boy. It was at this point that Kiba came back with a package that he then gave to Naruto. Here, man, I thought I'd give you a gift, he said, with a rather strange smile. Why are you giving me a gift? Did you get one for Shikamaru? Asked the redhead to the feral child. No real reason, and all, give it to him tomorrow. Asked Kiba, hoping that Naruto wouldn't catch on. Naruto then shrugged and opened the package, pulling out a hideous orange jumpsuit. What is this for? Asked Naruto, liking the color, but not really wanting to put it on. It's for you, answered Kiba. Are you sure? I don't really think this is appropriate, said Naruto, remembering the books that said dark colors were a shinobi's best friend. That's because, started Shikamaru, before he was silenced by Kiba putting a hand over his mouth. That's because, we're not real ninjas yet. We're just academy students. Real ninjas wear bright fluorescent colors. Not only does it look fantastic, but it also warns enemies that you're not to be with. Plus, it makes girls like you. Really? Asked Naruto, getting a nod from the dog-loving boy. Naruto then thanked him rather loudly, then left, as it was getting to be the time he had to meet with Bacchus. Why did you do that? Asked Shikamaru, watching Naruto leave. Why not? Responded Kiba. Sigh troublesome, said Shikamaru, as he walked away. The next day. This morning, Naruto slept in slightly late, for whatever reason. He then decided to put on his new jumpsuit and show his stuff around the village. Walking out of his and Temari's room, down the stairs, he couldn't help but wonder what her reaction was going to be. As he passed the couch where an unconscious Bacchus lay, the man opened one of his eyes, saw Naruto, and immediately closed it again, thinking it to be an alcohol-induced hallucination. There's no way Gaki-chan would wear that abomination, is there? Naruto then walked into the kitchen, just as Temari was biting into an apple, and asked, Good morning, Temari-chan. What do you think of my new clothes? Hearing this, Temari looked at Naruto, chewed once, twice, 3 times, swallowed, then smiled a smile and spoke in a tone that sent the fear of death up his spine. Naruto-kun, what are you wearing? It's an new outfit that Kiba gave me. He said that it was the ultimate in ninja wear. He quickly stammered out, before yelping in terror as the apple in Temari's hand exploded as she clenched her fist. Did he now? I guess I'll have to pay him a visit. Suddenly, said tattoo-faced boy shuddered, and decided to stay home that day. Now, why don't you put on something else, before we go to class? Temari inquired, still with that terrifying smile and tone of voice. Nodding vigorously, Naruto then ran upstairs to go change. As he was doing so, Temari heard Bacchus laughing from the couch, shouting, Ha, 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 you're whipped Gaki-chan. That's why I just bang and bail. Ha, ha, ha. Before he too saw the Shinigami as Temari giggled at his words. What was that, Bacchus-san? Nothing Temari-sama, said the terrified alcoholic, making the female nod in satisfaction. I love being a girl. I plan on having all of Naruto's Shippuden attacks be based off of death and killing, so while I do have a few jutsu I'm going to use, if you'd like to give me a few ideas, please give me the romaji, translation, and description, and I'll credit you if I use it. Shippuden. Kahozatsu, Scorch Release. Extremely steaming murder cannon. User creates several red-orange flaming orbs that resemble small suns. These orbs rotate around the user and can be freely controlled to attack enemies. When an orb touches an opponent, it apparently evaporates all the water inside their body, leaving them in a mummified state. When this happens, steam can be seen emitting from the opponent's body. However, this technique is vulnerable to water release, which can be used to dissipate the heat, becoming steam. The Kahozatsu's kanji is actually Chinese, and all of mine are Japanese, so, yeah, that'll probably explain why mushi is in all of mine, because I guess it translates to steaming. Fun fact, Yakusatsu can mean both massacre and genocide, so I had to use a different kanji for each. Celestial Overlord. Sorry about that. In hindsight, I should have made that an omake or something. Don't worry about Bacchus either. Since after this chapter, I don't plan on him appearing again, except perhaps in flashbacks or something. Shiki. Kun.1. Sorry, but no time skip. Ultima Owner. Yes, it does. Guessed. If those are your expectations, then you might get a little pissed later in the story. Miss Izuka. No, he hasn't, and I don't know if I plan on letting that happen either. Josh Hops. I don't know if that's a possibility. I mean, while in theory, it's relatively simple due to the fact that the only canon moves for the Shikuden are all in the shape of an orb, they don't actually do any physical trauma. Rather, they go through the enemy, forcefully turning all the water in the body to steam, so I can't think of what the effects of a Shikuden Rasengan would be like, other than making it a spinning version of my Shikuden. Genosado o Mushi, Scorch Release. Steaming Genocide. Mystery Man 1626. While I do believe that to be an awesome idea, you can never go wrong with a dragon technique, the name you suggested leaves something to be desired in my eyes. The Shikuden. Doragonkata, Scorch Release. Dragon Cutter, while interesting, seems off, as there is no actual cutting happening, as well as the fact that I stated a, in hindsight, slightly disturbing preference for just you with names containing things such as murder, assassination, or genocide. While I don't think that I'll be using it for the Shikuden, I may use it for a Futon Dragon Jutsu. Naruto Fin 2191. None of the Jinchuriki were handed over. I simply had Naruto stay in Suna for a year to train with Pakura, and improve relations between the villages. Naruto and Temari will live in Konoha, and Gaara was simply there for the hell of it, and will return to Suna. Ogren. First of all, let me say that Ogren was one of my favorite party members in Dragon Age Origins, so if that's a reference, then kudos, and if not, then oh well. Second of all, he does not have straight red hair, or red highlights. Naruto has his canon hairstyle, with red hair. He is a heterochromic, red-headed Minato with whisker marks. Overlord Kyo 1099. Yeah, that'll happen if you just type in Bacchus, LQTM. I have to type in Fairy Tale Bacchus to get him to show up. Thank you for asking me to be your beta, by the way. L3 Lud Knight. Yes, Naruto is in fact a redhead. He has his canon hairstyle, but with red hair. I don't know if I'll give Naruto another girl. If I do, it'll probably just be a threesome for the hell of it, or a poll for something more permanent. I wasn't planning on one, but, now that you mention it, yes. I will have a Temari Tenten rivalry. Veliel 13. That is a good question. Too bad the world will never know. It was around 9:30 p.m., with Naruto sound asleep, when he was awakened by the sound of Temari opening his door, as she had been sleeping in another room. Can I sleep with you? She asked. It's too cold, and I can't sleep, she told him, getting a nod from Naruto, prompting her to climb into the bed, snuggling up to his rather warm body. Must be from his Shikuden. Scorch Release, she pondered in her head, before falling into the peaceful abyss of sleep. The next day, surprisingly, it was Bacchus who was the first one up on that particular morning. Thinking this odd, he went to go find his student and his fiancée, to see if Naruto would start breakfast. Upon opening the door, the, for once sober, man smirked seeing the two children sleeping in the same bed. He then walked over to them and shook Naruto awake. Knock it off, Temari. I'm trying to sleep, the boy groaned, before noticing that it was Bacchus. What do you want? Bacchus-sensei. Filing that away for future blackmail, the man simply told him that it was time for breakfast and that the academy was in 1 hour. Finally getting up, Naruto, dressed in a pair of green pants, a light brown shirt, and a green jacket, proceeded to make everyone's breakfast, it having been discovered that he was a rather good cook during his time in Suna, lessons pounded into him by Pakura. When it was finally time, the two children were rather surprised that Bacchus decided to accompany them, and even more so at the fact that he was completely sober. When asked, he simply said that this was too monumental an event for him to get drunk, as it was the official beginning of his first student's ninja career. Though he was planning on getting as trashed as physically possible at the first opportunity, seeing as though he was already feeling the symptoms of alcohol withdrawal. When the group of three made it to the academy, the first thing they noticed were the sheer number of people there. In one group there was a man with long blonde hair in a ponytail standing near a girl with shoulder-length hair of the same color. The man was talking to a rather rotund couple standing with their backs to a large boy with swirl marks on his cheeks who was in turn sharing a bag of chips with a lazy-looking boy with a black ponytail, while another man with the same ponytail and scars on his face was being chewed out by what appeared to be his wife. Another group had two boys, one of whom had red tattoos on his face while the other had a jacket that covered most of his face, as a woman with the same tattoos and a man who also had a jacket conversed in the background. Then there were several groups that were on their own, such as a family of Pinkets talking to a timid-looking girl, a family of people in old-style robes with strange white eyes, standing behind a girl, and a very large group of people who all had black hair and eyes, most of whom were behind four people, one of whom looked to be about 10, give or take a year or two, and was wearing a chunin vest, and a boy with a rather interesting haircut, each of whom had a fan symbol somewhere upon their clothing. While none of them missed, or were surprised at the glares several people instantly leveled at Naruto, though none of the aforementioned people, except the elder Pinkets as well as a few of the white-eyed folks, and most of the ones with the fan symbol, did so, they were pleasantly surprised to see Pakura there as well. Pakura-sensei, what are you doing here? Wondered Naruto. I just wanted to see you off on your road to glory. Also, Kazekage-sama requested that I be here for Temari-san. Responded the woman, who was getting some very strange looks from the civilians, and wary looks from the shinobi due to her Hitai-8. Naruto, happy at the gesture, nodded, but before any more conversation could be initiated, the Hokage appeared in front of the academy, signaling the start of the ceremony. The genin hopefuls then all lined up with their parents behind them, with Bacchus standing behind Naruto, and Pakura standing behind Temari. As the Hokage began his speech about the importance of the event, his thoughts kept drifting to the hell that the council had put him through concerning Naruto and Temari. Flashback no Jutsu. It was a full week after Hiruzen had returned from his trip to Suna without Naruto, and at the moment he was preparing himself for his meeting with the council. Comprised of his advisors, his old genin teammates, Shimura Danzo, though it wasn't completely clear as to what he did there other than make grabs for power, the heads and heirs of the shinobi clans, the heirs had to be at least 10 or a genin to attend. As such, only the Inuzuka and the Uchiha heirs were present, and around 8 of the more prominent civilians. I suppose you are wondering as to what you are all doing here, said the Hokage, getting nods from most of the council. We are here to discuss my trip to Suna, as well as the new treaty between our countries, he explained, getting interested looks from all but Danzo. Speaking of that, Hiruzen, started Danzo, before getting interrupted by Hiruzen. Excuse me, Hokage-sama, said the man, getting a nod from the aged Hokage, speaking of your visit to Suna. Hokage-sama, might I inquire as to where the Jinchuriki is? It is my understanding that it was not with you when you returned from your journey. Naruto is currently in Suna, as per our treaty, started the old man, before pausing to ignore the obligatory outraged exclamations. I must say, for people who don't really seem to care too much about him, you seem awfully concerned with keeping him in the village. Now, as I was saying before I was interrupted, Naruto is in Suna as per the treaty, to train for a year in the use of his Kekkei Genkai. When 1 year has passed, he will be returned here, where he and the Kage's daughter will be attending the academy. He explained, getting shocked looks from those assembled, and a hungry look from Danzo. Hokage-sama, may I propose? No, you cannot have Naruto as a weapon, Danzo. We have been over this time and time again. You keep asking, and I keep saying no. Drop it, now, said Hiruzen, releasing chakra with the last 3 words to make sure that Danzo knew that he meant business. What exactly is the Gaki's Kekkei Genkai, Hokage-sama? Asked the only female clan head, who had frizzy brown hair, red marks on her face, and was one of the 2 with an heir attending. He has what is known as the Shikuden, a chakra-based Kekkei Genkai that is created from the mixture of Kaden, fire release, and Futon, wind release. He explained, getting interested looks from everyone. Hokage-sama, may I inquire as to why the Kage's daughter is coming here to enter the academy? Asked a man with black hair and eyes, the only other person who had their heir present. As per the new treaty, Naruto and the Kage's daughter, who is named Temari, are to be in a political marriage, and will reinstate the Uzumaki clan. What? How dare you? This is an outrage. After the shouting of the civilian side of the council started, Hiruzen simply glared at them all, in order to silence them, then asked, and what exactly is your problems with this? Hokage-sama, you can't be serious, allowing that demon a female. That girl needs to be rescued. You need to pick another suitor. What of Uchiha-sama's children? Surely they hold the best position of power for a political marriage. Said one of the bolder civilians. While I am not aware of any demon that the girl would need rescuing from, Kage Dono specifically asked for Naruto to be the groom for this marriage after a demonstration of the Kekkei Genkai. Naruto and Temari are to attend the academy, become shinobi, and as soon as they are either both Chunin or 18, they are to be married. Should they have children, they will be given the option to become shinobi for either Konoha or Suna, repeated Hiruzen, before more outraged shouting occurred. You're letting it have a clan. Are you trying to destroy the village? You can't give the demon a clan, then it could make laws. Shouted one of the civilians, though no one could tell who it was. He is not a demon. He is a child, shouted Hiruzen, quickly losing his patience. Hiruzen, I would suggest that the Jinchuriki be placed in an artificial insemination program in order to make more Kekkei Genkai users for the village. Proposed Danzo, unknowingly pushing the man known as the god of shinobi off the proverbial cliff. You're letting it breed now too. It should at least be castrated if you're not going to kill it. If you're just going to use her for breeding stock, then give her to Uchiha-sama. Shouted the same, bold, civilian, immediately shutting up as a wave of unadulterated ki, killing intent filled the room, showing him that the 2 had said the wrong thing. First of all, Naruto is just a child with extraordinary abilities and unfortunate circumstances, yes, but he is still just a child, he is not a demon. Second, Temari is not breeding stock. She is a human being and will be treated as such. Third, if I ever hear that from any of you, I will respond according to the law I put in place 6 years ago, threatened Hiruzen, making them all pale at the thought of execution without trial. That being said, Naruto will wed Temari, who will be attending the academy with him, as soon as both are at least Chunin or 18, and will reinstate the Uzumaki clan here in Konoha at that time. Should they choose to have children, those children shall be allowed to become Suna shinobi if they like, whether or not they have the Shikuden. Dismissed. Flashback no Jutsu Kai. Concluding his speech, the Hokage bid the students say their goodbyes to their parents. When that happened, both the group with the white eyes and the group with the fan symbol simply left without saying goodbye, while some adults and children completely broke down. Well, Naruto, Temari, it's time for me to go. Temari, because of your futon affinity, you are to report to Sarutobi Asuma after the academy ends for training. Naruto, just remember my lessons and you will be fine. But, I have asked Hokage-sama to tell me if you fall behind just in case you need a refresher course. said Pakura with a smile, casing Naruto to have waking nightmares of the times when the woman had to resort to drastic measures during his training to make sure that the lesson stuck. With that, the green-haired woman bid them right her every so often, then made her way out of the village. Well, Gaki-chan, see you later. Come back to the house after this crap ends, and I'll begin teaching you the next step of the chop hanging palm. Bacchus told Naruto, snapping the boy out of his horrified stupor. Really, sensei? Asked the star-struck boy. Of course, Gaki-chan, replied the man as he staggered off. After he had stumbled out of the courtyard, Naruto and Temari shared a look before they both entered the academy. For the first 2 hours of the day, Yumino Iruka, a man with a scar across his nose and his brown hair in a pineapple ponytail who was their teacher, had explained the importance of the shinobi system, and of their decision to attend the academy. Naruto had been tempted to simply sleep through it along with the boy who also had a pineapple-shaped ponytail in the back, but Temari kept reminding him of Pakura's warning, and making sure that he paid attention, though he already knew most of what was being said. Now that that is over, I have a few questions, then we will be going outside for the taijutsu portion of the day. Explained the scarred man, getting everyone's attention. Now, who here can access chakra? He asked, getting raised hands from the boy with the fan symbol, who had been introduced as Uchiha Sasuke, the white-eyed girl, named Hyuga Hinata, Naruto, and Temari. Who here has ever used elemental chakra? He asked, not really expecting anyone to answer, so he was shocked when Sasuke, Temari, and Naruto all raised their hands. May I ask what you use? Queried Iruka, getting nods from the three. Kaden, explained Sasuke. Futon, said Temari. Futon and Kaden, the elements that make up my Kekkei Genkai. Naruto told the class, shocking everyone in the room, that he had a Kekkei Genkai, as he wasn't from any of the clans they had ever heard of. And which Kekkei Genkai would that be? Naruto asked Iruka, pausing to check for the boy's name. I use Shikuden, he answered, getting confused looks from everyone. What's all that? Shouted a boy with red marks on his face, who was named Kiba. Chakra is the force that allows a shinobi to be a shinobi. It is derived from physical energy, drawn from every cell in the body, and spiritual energy, gained from exercise and experience. It allows one to use various jutsu, allowing a shinobi to do things like walk on water or breath fire, explained Iruka, pausing in order to see the looks of wonder on their faces, before continuing. Elemental chakra is chakra that is attuned to one of the 5 elements. Fire, wind, lightning, earth, and water, and to have an affinity for one makes it easy for one to use that element. A Kekkei Genkai is an ability passed down from generation to generation that is impossible to naturally use if you are not of that family. These come in one of 3 types: chakra, body, and eye. Coincidentally, does anyone else have a Kekkei Genkai here? Asked Iruka, getting raised hands from Sasuke and Hinata. Now that that's out of the way, let's go outside to evaluate your taijutsu and ninjutsu, said Iruka, as he led the way. Outside. Now, how many of you actually have taijutsu training? Asked the man, getting raised hands from the Sasuke, Kiba, Hinata, Temari, and Naruto. Very well. Now, when I call your name, I want you to go into the ring, and spar with the other person whose name I call, said Iruka, shocking them all since they didn't expect to be fighting on the first day. As the day progressed, it was mainly civilians brawling with each other, though there were a few exceptions. Shikamaru simply quit during his match with Choji, the rotund boy with the swirl marks on his face, so that they didn't have to fight each other. Temari beat the pink kid who was named Sakura with a single punch, leading her to be comforted by a blonde girl named Ino. Sasuke easily defeated his civilian opponent. Hinata beat Ino in pretty much no time flat, but kept apologizing as she did so. Then there was Naruto and Kiba's fight. At the start, Kiba immediately rushed Naruto, hoping to end the fight quickly, as Naruto simply stayed where he was, dropping into the chop hanging palm stance, bending both knees out to his sides and raising his arms like he were about to start flapping them. As Kiba reached Naruto, the redhead dodged the punch directed at him, orbiting around to Kiba's right, where he thrust his palm to the side of the boy's knee, and, while not breaking anything, causing a lot of pain. With a yell, Kiba pitched forwards into the dirt, clinging to his knee. After around 10 seconds, he got back up shakily, and approached Naruto once again, this time with a little more caution. "That hurt, Tem," said the Inuzuka, getting a smirk from Naruto. "It's supposed to, isn't it?" asked Naruto, causing Kiba to smirk as well. "Well, if that's how you want to play, then I shouldn't hold back, now should I?" With that, Naruto and Kiba stuck the pose of their respective taijutsu styles, and stood there for around 30 seconds. At a silent signal, they both broke into a flurry of action, with Kiba, though still in rather obvious pain from his knee, attempting to punch Naruto, but the redhead continuously dodging and blocking most of the attacks. Then, as Tattooed Boy went for a roundhouse kick with his left foot, Naruto saw his chance. Raising his right arm to take most of the blow, he used his left palm to strike his opponent's kneecap, causing Kiba to fall down again, as his knee bent too far, causing severe pain, though once again not doing anything permanent. This time, the brunette boy took around 30 seconds to recover, and when he did, his legs were trembling due to the pain he was in. Once again, Kiba went on the attack, however, this time, the pain he was in prevented him from using his legs, making him resort to only using his fists, and severely lowering his maneuverability. While he was able to get a solid blow in, his new handicap proved to be his undoing in that he began to make severe mistakes due to the pain. In an attempt at swiping Naruto with his claws, Naruto caught the limb, with his left arm, shoved the heel of his right palm into the muscle directly below Kiba's sternum, knocking the wind out of him, and this time, when Kiba fell, Naruto brought one of his palms down on the back of Kiba's neck, effectively knocking him unconscious. After everyone got out of their stupor, Iruka was forced to pause class while he took Kiba to the infirmary. When he got back, he gave everyone a grade on their taijutsu, with Naruto and Sasuke tied for first, and Temari being the best kunoichi with Hinata close behind. Next, Iruka asked Naruto, Temari, Sasuke, and Hinata if they wanted to show off a jutsu or their Kekkei Genkai. With that, both Naruto and Sasuke stepped up, Hinata being too shy and Temari not actually knowing any jutsu at the moment. Sasuke, going first, quickly went through some hand signs, and with a cry of, Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu Grand Fireball Jutsu, he spit out a ball of fire around the same size as him at one of the dummies in the training yard, destroying it, and getting adoring sighs from most of the girls there. Then, Naruto stepped up, put his palms together over his head, and then spread them out to his sides, creating 5 red-orange orbs in an arc. Beautiful, was the combined thoughts of most of the class. Shikuden. Kahozatsu, scorch release. Extremely steaming murder, murmured Naruto. He then began to twirl them around himself in a stunning display, before he sent each of them to a separate dummy, causing a cloud of steam to appear. When it cleared, Iruka went over to one of the now emaciated dummies, and easily broke off one of its arms. And with that, Iruka let everyone leave, saying that the day was over, and that they would begin trying to unlock the rest of the students' chakra next time. With Naruto departing, Naruto headed back to his new home with Temari going to the Hokage Tower to meet up with Asuma, only to halt outside seeing that there were several unconscious people in a pile outside his house with several spray cans littered around the ground. I don't know whether to thank him or kill him, thought Naruto as he unlocked his door and stepped inside, to see Bacchus face down on the stairs with his head pointing towards the bottom, some form of liquid surrounding him on the stairs, pooling at the bottom. Kill him. Bacchus-sensei, can you wake up? It's time to go train. Naruto told the man, trying to get him up, but not wanting to touch the mystery fluid. When that failed, Naruto sighed and braced himself for what he had to do. Hey look. It's a bunch of topless models rubbing oil on each other. Hearing that, Bacchus shot up, promptly lost his footing, and once again fell down the stairs into the liquid. Damn it, Gaki-chan, I hate it when you do that. Groaned Bacchus. Sorry sensei, but it's time to begin training. You said that you'd teach me the next step of chop hanging palm. Oh yeah, I had forgotten about that. Slurred the half-man, getting a sweat drop from Naruto, before he stared at the liquid he had been laying in. Damn, I spilled my beer. Oh well, let's go. With Temari. When Temari departed from the academy, she went straight for the Hokage's office. As she went, she noticed several people staring at her, some in pity, some in curiosity, and some in anger. Shrugging it off as a product of who her fiancé was, she simply sped up until she entered the tower. Upon arrival, she was whisked up to Hiruzen's office to wait for Asuma by the secretary. Ah, Temari-chan, how are you? Asked the Hokage upon seeing her enter her office. I am fine, Hokage-sama, answered Temari, nervous at being alone with such an important and influential man. I am aware that it has been less than one day, but I trust you are settling in comfortably. Hi, Hokage-sama. I was a little uncomfortable at first, but then Naruto told me that we were not alone, that we still had family and friends. Upon hearing that, Hiruzen was rather surprised at the emotional depth that Naruto seemed to have. Then again, Kushina always hit the nail on the head and he has her personality. Oh shit, does that mean I'm going to have to go through the pranking hell she put me through again? Damn it, I still can't look at a lava lamp without bursting into tears. Unaware of the inner turmoil going on in the man's head, she curiously watched his facial expression change from happy and relaxed, to realization, to horror, before he started crying. But before she could ask what was wrong, she heard the secretary trying to keep someone out of the room. OT go in right now, Hokage-sama has asked not to be disturbed as he is in a meeting and awaiting the return of a shinobi for a mission briefing. Sir, I can't let you in. Sir, stop. Hammer time. Wait, what? Who said that? Oh crap, sir. With that, the door burst open, revealing a man with shaggy black hair, an X-shaped scar on his chin, bandages covering his right eye, a cane, and what appeared to be a missing or useless right arm, if the fact that his robe left no opening for it were anything to go by. I specifically asked not to be disturbed, Danzo. Now what is it that you need? My apologies, Hokage-sama. I simply wished to meet with Konoha's newest. Responded Danzo, staring at Temari, making her feel like a mouse trapped between the paws of a rather sadistic cat. If that is all, then please leave. I am expecting Asuma to return from a mission, and he is to be her teacher. Said Hiruzen. Danzo then glanced at Hiruzen, then looked at Temari, before telling her, I look forward to seeing how you affect this village, Temari-san, before leaving, making Temari exhale a breath that she didn't know she was holding. With Naruto. At the training ground, the first thing that Naruto noticed were several training dummies, one of which had a piece of cloth nailed to it with a kunai. Now, review what I've taught you, Naruto, commanded Bacchus, though Naruto was pretty sure his alcohol-soaked brain had simply forgotten. You have taught me how to harden the palms and heels of my hands in order to not hurt myself hitting objects. You taught me how and where to strike to cause the most damage. You taught me how to focus chakra into my palms to increase the power of my strikes, and you taught me the wall walking and kunai balancing chakra control exercises. Oh, and you gave me these weights, reviewed the boy, showing Bacchus the bands on his forearms that his teachers had given him when they noticed that he was both stronger than most his age as well as healed quicker, too, getting a nod from the man. How much weight are on them? 30 pounds each. Naruto told him. You bastard. Thought the boy with a smile, slightly pissed at the hell his senseis put him through in the name of making him stronger. Alright, now, the next step of the chop hanging palm is to use your elemental chakra instead of regular chakra, watch. Stated Bacchus, before hitting one of the training dummies next to the one with the cloth pinned to it, causing electrical burns to spread over the surface. And the step after that is this, he continued, smacking the dummy with the cloth on it, though nothing seemed to happen. But before Naruto could comment on this, Bacchus lifted up the bottom of the cloth to reveal that the wood once again had electrical burns. The final step is to, for lack of a better word, inject your chakra into your target. He finished, getting a confused look from Naruto. Why bother? Why not just use the effects of simply coating your hand in chakra? Asked Naruto, getting an understanding nod from his sensei. Two simple reasons, Gaki-chan. The first is that only Raiden, Kaden, and Futon are effective using that method. Nothing's really going to happen with Suiden, water release, and all that would happen with Doden, earth release, is that it would make it like you're wearing gauntlets or something. For the truly devastating effects of this style, you must inject your chakra into the victim. The second reason is probably the most important for Shinobi. And that reason is assassination. Why fight your target when you could simply pat him on the back at a simple social function where you would be in disguise? Or maybe you could take out a guard at an enemy camp. This way, there's no outside trauma to suggest that there's something wrong, and when they do die, it can't really be traced to you. Explained Bacchus, getting a nod from Naruto. Now, I want you to use your Kaden to strike one of the dummies. I don't feel like taking you to get your hand reattached should you mess up. You should start with a low amount of chakra. Finished Bacchus, getting a nod from the boy. While it would normally take months or even years to master elemental chakra, apparently, Naruto's Kekkei Genkai made it easier for Naruto to use Futon and Kaden, as well as the extensive chakra control exercises that both his senseis had been drilling into him, allowing him to, when in Suna, to cut a small stone or turn small amounts of sand into glass. 3. Using his experience, he coated his hands in chakra, before turning that chakra into Kaden chakra. Noticing that he felt nothing other than a small amount of warmth, he glanced at his sensei, thinking that it didn't seem too hard. Turning to one of the uncovered dummies, he took up his taijutsu stance, before striking the log with one of his burning palms. However, being new to the technique, his concentration wavered, causing the flames to burn both him and the log, forcing Naruto to cancel his chakra flow out of reflex. And that's why you won't use Futon for a while, Gaki-chan. I want you to continue to strike the log for a few hours, and when I come back, I'll show you some more chakra control exercises. Bacchus told him, before turning around and walking away. With Temari. After Asuma got back from his completed bandit removal mission, he took Temari to a training ground that looked more like a shooting range, not that they'd know what that is though. Now Temari-san, tell me, how far are you on your Futon training? Asked Asuma, getting a slightly confused look from Temari. I can almost cut a rock, but I don't know what that means here. She told him, getting an understanding nod from Asuma. Okay, then I want you to try to cut a leaf in half. Asuma told her, to which she nodded, picked up a fallen leaf, and concentrated. When she pulled her hand away, the leaf was cut around 4/5 of the way through, and Asuma was surprised. How is she doing that at her age? She must have been practicing herself into exhaustion every day. Very good, continue doing that until I say so. If you need advice, tell me, I'll be more than happy to help. With that, Temari continued to use her futon, trying to completely cut the leaf, Asuma occasionally throwing her advice. With Naruto, 4 hours had passed as Naruto continued to strike the log, burning himself less and less, and every time he went a minute without hurting himself, he would raise the amount of chakra in his palms, before resuming his exercise, occasionally switching to a new dummy when wore one out. When that 4 hours was up, Naruto noticed the heavy smell of alcohol getting closer, struck the dummy he was currently on one last time with each palm, and then turned to his teacher. That's good, Gaki-chan. Now, follow me, Bacchus said, eyeing the 7 or so destroyed dummies before leading Naruto to a river. I've taught you how to walk on walls and how to balance kunai, though you're not very good at it. What you may not know is that we skipped a step, water walking. It's different from tree walking in that instead of a constant flow, you have to keep changing your chakra output. Now you try. Finished the drunk, before he started walking onto the river. But before he did so, Naruto couldn't help but ask, why did you skip this? Because Gaki-chan, only registered Suna shinobi are allowed near any water source of real size. Now get to it. With that, Naruto placed one of his feet onto the surface of the water, allowing his chakra to flow. When it felt like he was on the ground, he put his weight on it, and surprisingly, it held. Emboldened by his success, he quickly placed his other foot on the water, and promptly fell in. You lost focus, Gaki-chan. When you have enough experience, you'll be able to do this without thinking, but until then, no. So, Naruto and Bacchus continued his water walking training, and when Naruto got the hang of standing, Bacchus made him walk. When he got the hang of walking, Bacchus made him run. When he got the hang of running, they sparred, though they only did so for about 10 minutes, and Naruto fell in, a lot. After that, they went back to the house, and exhausted Temari meeting them there. Naruto then made dinner for them all. The Hokage had forbidden him from eating ramen more than once a day, and he'd had it for lunch at the academy. He then began to read the academy material for a while, before falling asleep with Temari to get ready for the next day. It was the day before the end of the academy year, and quite a few things had happened. Naruto mastering Kaden chop hanging palm to an acceptable degree, Temari fully cutting the leaf and moving on to a tree, Naruto training with his Fuinjutsu, which he was remarkably good at, Temari learning wall walking from Naruto, etc., etc. But there were some that were rather noteworthy, the first of which being Naruto's birthday. Over the course of the morning, Naruto and Temari sparred, and compared notes on elemental chakra. Then the Hokage and Inu showed up, surprising Naruto since he hadn't seen the Anbu since Suna. The five of them had a nice lunch, before some of Naruto's friends from the academy, Shikamaru, Choji, and Kiba, arrived. He was kind of sad Sasuke hadn't shown up, but he wasn't surprised considering that Sasuke's dad didn't really like Naruto, probably because of the Kyuubi. After several hours of nothing but horsing around and conversation, the Hokage took everyone to Ichiraku's. After a grand total of 76 bowls of ramen, it was time for cake, chocolate, and presents. Naruto loved his gifts, a Fuinjutsu book from Hiruzen. He also had a wind jutsu scroll from Asuma. But the man was on a mission, a couple of fire jutsu scrolls from Inu. A pair of chakra-conducting metal gauntlets that could fit over his weights, now up to 40 each, from Pakura, who couldn't be there. Though she did send a card, Gaara sent Naruto his teddy bear, a promise to teach the next stage in chakra control, where instead of balancing kunai on your palms, you do a handstand on the kunai points. The next day from Bacchus, Choji gave him a coupon that would give him half off the final price of a meal at any Akamichi restaurant. Shikamaru and Kiba each gave him a set of kunai and shuriken, and the Ichirakus gave him a few sets of shinobi clothing. But Temari's gift, in his opinion, was one of the best. A kiss on the cheek, and a free meal ticket to Ichiraku's. Then, it was time for final goodbyes and then everyone left. When the night came, and Naruto and Temari went to bed, Naruto reflected on the fact that this day was the happiest of his life, and he smiled knowing that things were only going to get better. Fast forward to January 23, 4. Naruto and Temari were pretty much dominating the academy, mostly because of how easy it was. Naruto still being the best in the class, which infuriated almost everyone in Konoha since he was ahead of the Uchiha, and Temari being the best of the Kunoichi, as well as being one of the top 5 students in the class, able to take on every other Kunoichi in their class without hassle, except for Hinata, but that goes without saying due to the fact that Temari is a long-range specialist, and Hinata is more close-up like the rest of her clan, though she could beat Hinata. Naruto could stay on the kunai for around 10 minutes, though he had lost a lot of blood over the months, especially in the beginning, by impaling himself, and could almost attack through the cloth without leaving a mark with his Kaden chakra, though he had yet to start using his futon with his taijutsu. Temari had started learning futon techniques using the iron fan given to her when she found her affinity, and could almost cut through the leaf. But that's not important at the moment. What is important is that it was Temari's birthday. Like with Naruto's birthday, during the morning, Naruto and Temari simply sparred, though they were more skilled than they were, and compared jutsu. Then after lunch the guests arrived. Among the list were the Hokage, several of the class kunoichi including Sakura and Ino, a lot of whom invited themselves though Hinata didn't show up because of her father. Shikamaru, she was the only one besides his father that had ever beaten him at Shogi Choji, and Asuna. From all the girls, she got clothing, a shogi board from Shikamaru, a few jutsu from Asuma, a set of kunai and shuriken from Hiruzen, and a copy of the ticket he gave Naruto from Choji. From her family, she received a glass sculpture from Gaara and Yashimaru, a book on proper female etiquette from Kankuro, which she immediately destroyed along with the rather sarcastic note that came along with it, an actual battle fan from Pakura, and the weasel summoning contract from her father. But, like with Naruto, her favorite gift was from her fiancé. When she opened the box he brought her, her first thought was, a pair of fans. And indeed they were, but just not any pair of fans. No. These were Tessin. Two regular-sized folding fans made entirely out of metal, unlike her regular-sized fan, where only the ribs were metal and the leaves were chakra-conducting wood, that extra dark shade of steely gray that came with chakra-conducting metal, the leaves painted over with a beautiful dark red, the subtle nuances of the coloring making it appear as cloth. At this point in time, they were dull, allowing her to either sharpen them regularly, or use her wind chakra to do so for her. 5. She once again gave him a kiss on the cheek, and then it was time for them to once again go home. Fast forward once again to midnight around a month before the end of their first school year, and a shadow is seen sneaking out of a window in the Uzumaki household. Going somewhere, sensei? Asked a voice, before a light turned on, revealing Naruto in a swivel chair, petting a cat, and Bacchus, who was half out of the window. Sigh, yeah, Gaki-chan, I'm leaving. Where did you get that cat anyways? Wondered Bacchus, slightly confused at the whole deal. I don't know, I found it hiding in the cabinet under the sink earlier today, and since I sometimes see him getting chased by genin teams, so I just thought he might need a place to stay for the night. Ah, anyways, why are you leaving? Asked Naruto, getting another sigh from Bacchus, as he climbed back inside. I'm leaving because I have no reason to stay, Gaki-chan. The man told him, before holding up a hand to stall anything Naruto may have had to say. I taught you all I could, you can use Kaden chakra in battle now, all you need is practice. And you don't need me for futon, because you're better with that anyways. The only reason I've stayed this long is to teach you. I'm sorry, but I can't stay tied down to one place, it's just not in my nature. Plus I haven't gotten laid in a year, you little bastard. I understand, sensei. Thank you for everything, and I hope you have a good life. Naruto told the man solemnly, getting up and hugging him. At that, Bacchus hugged Naruto as well, before bursting into tears and squeezing the life out of him. I'm gonna miss you, Gaki-chan. He shouted, before releasing Naruto, who fell gasping to the floor. I'm gonna miss you, too, sensei. Naruto said in between breaths. Bacchus then had the most serious face Naruto had ever seen on him, grabbed Naruto's hand, and shook it. It's been nice, Naruto. Make sure you teach the world to fear Chop Hanging Palm, said Bacchus, shocking Naruto that he actually called him by name, that the boy barely noticed the man jump out the window. Quote. Why didn't he just use the door? It was nearing the final days of the academy, and Naruto had decided to try the test to see if he could become a genin, Temari not thinking she had the skills as of yet, and wanting to get Hinata to come out of her shell. It started rather boringly, with a test with all the other genin hopefuls, most of whom stared at Naruto with surprise at first, since they were all either in their final year or had 1 year left. Then it was off to the taijutsu ring as the papers were graded. In this test, each student had to spar with one of the Chunin teachers for either 5 minutes, or until they landed a solid blow. Naruto started off facing off against a rather large man named Funano Daikoku, a rather large man with a diamond-shaped goatee. This fight ended when Naruto was able to hit Daikoku in the solar plexus after about 4 minutes. Then, the results of the test were announced with Naruto being placed 10th. Finally, it was back into the academy for the last test. The students were called back into the classroom one by one, some coming out with looks of pride and a headband, and some with looks of disappointment. When it was finally Naruto's turn, it turned out to be just Iruka behind his desk, facing the large open area at the front. Now, I want you to do the Academy 3 Jutsu, Naruto. If you do, you'll be an official genin. Iruka told the boy, getting a nod. To be. No, I'm just yanking your chain. Now, I want you to do the Academy 3 Jutsu, Naruto. If you do, you'll be an official genin. Iruka told the boy, getting a nod. Naruto then placed his hands in the ram symbol, before shouting, Henge transformation. He then exploded in a cloud of smoke that cleared to reveal Bacchus, drunken grin and everything, before he poofed back into Naruto. Naruto then put his hands in the snake symbol. He was then once again disappeared in a cloud of smoke, before he was replaced by a chair showing a successful Kawarimi substitution, before reappearing and putting it back. That's good, Naruto. Now, make 3 clones, and you'll pass. At this point, Naruto was rather nervous, as it was rather difficult for him to do, with his reserves, though his almost perfect chakra control from his training slightly allayed his fears. Placing his hands in the tiger seal, he shouted, Bunshin number jutsu, clone technique. Before he was enveloped in smoke, and when it cleared, there were 5 Narutos. I'll have to knock off points for the extra clone, but that was very good. Congratulations, Naruto, you're a shinobi. One of the youngest ever in peacetime if I'm not mistaken. Now, take a headband, and report back to the academy on Saturday for team assignments. With that, Naruto left the room, much to the astonishment of the others, went home, and celebrated with Temari, Hiruzen, and the Ichirakus but not Inu, as he was on a mission and not expected to return for a couple of months. And that's that. I had wanted to post this before the 5th, but fanfiction lost a lot of my progress. I know I didn't say anything about it, but Naruto did practice his Fuinjutsu over the year. If you're wondering, this is only the 1st or 2nd year that Iruka is teaching. Before anyone says anything about everyone being OOC, this is the 1st year of the academy. Sakura and Ino haven't had their fight, Kiba hasn't received Akamaru, and the Uchiha clan massacre hasn't happened. The Hyuga incident has happened though, because that happened when everyone was 3 years ago in this story, so no, Naruto will not be saving Hinata. And yes, Naruto is kind of overpowered. Deal with it. New poll up in my profile. The top 3 will be the next stories that I'll update start. The basic description of all my stories are on my profile under current story IEs and story IEs coming out whenever the hell I feel like it. Omake. Those can't be real. It was close to 2 o'clock about 10 days after Naruto had first met Come to Suna, and Naruto was passed out on the floor in the middle of the Kage's mansion, sleeping off a ramen-induced coma. Temari, being the nice person that she was, decided to give Naruto a blanket just in case he got cold. Temari had originally hoped to simply give the boy the blanket and then go back to her studies, but fate it seemed had other plans, as she found herself drawn to the whiskers on his face. Those have to be tattoos. There's no way those are birthmarks. She paused, considering her options. This would probably be the only opportunity to find out for sure. In the end, temptation and curiosity won out over common sense. Reaching out slowly, she gently rubbed the tip of a finger along one of the lines. She was surprised to find that it was slightly grooved and indeed a part of Naruto's face. She nearly jumped out of her skin though when she heard a sudden low growling noise. It was only when Naruto unconsciously started trying to rub his face into her finger she located the source. Is he? No, he couldn't be, she thought as she gently ran her finger along his whisker again only for the growling to once again occur. She almost burst out laughing. The blonde boy was purring from having his whiskers rubbed. Getting her giggling under control with some difficulty, she began to drape the blanket over him, before pausing and looking at him. Just once more. It's too funny not to, she thought as she rubbed his face once more. And then Lady Luck decided the young girl's luck had run out. For as Temari turned and began to leave, the blonde rolled over onto his side swinging an arm. Temari was suddenly knocked off balance and found herself held rather tightly in the sleeping blonde's vice-like grip. Laying there face to face with the whiskered blonde boy, Temari realized she was screwed and it was her own fault. Carefully pulling the blanket over the two of them so as not to wake Naruto up accidentally, Temari chose to go to sleep as well and await the awkward wake-up that would undoubtedly follow. She found it strange, however, as she slowly started to drift off, that she felt so much more comfortable in the arms of this boy she barely knew, than most other points in her life. Her last thoughts before she drifted off to sleep were, "It's nice." About 4 hours later, Naruto began to awake to a warm feeling and the rather pleasant smell of vanilla. Looking at the clock on the wall, Naruto noticed how late it was and decided to get up and get ready for the Hokage to take him back to the hotel, but found he was unable to move his left arm. Turning his head, he saw the reason why, which nearly caused him to burst into a full-on panic attack, screaming and everything, as he saw Temari laying fast asleep atop his arm. Slowly, ever so slowly, Naruto began to slide his arm out from underneath her torso. "Please don't wake up. Please don't wake up. Please don't wake up," he repeated over and over again in his head, not wanting to be himself right then, given his past experiences where he'd seen men, accidentally, groping women, or where they'd just been in the wrong place at the wrong time and were assumed to be a pervert. The women would generally then proceed to beat the crap out of the man, leaving them a bloody, broken mess. He had gotten his arm free and was slowly sliding his hand out from under the sleeping girl when his life was made rather difficult. He suddenly heard the faint echoes of someone opening the front door, which caused him to flinch. His mistake ended up costing him dearly. Temari started to shift in her sleep, freeing up the blonde's hand enough to try and pull it away quickly, which he attempted only to be caught in the metaphorical jaws of the trap he'd unknowingly created earlier. His movement caused Temari grab his arm at the elbow as she proceeded to snuggle up against him. He panicked a little, causing himself to struggle and free arm. This only made things worse for the poor blonde, however, as during the struggle Temari, who was amazingly still asleep, had snuggled up closer to him. She now had one leg bent at the knee, draped over his waist. Meanwhile she had pressed her chest against his side, her left arm going across his chest, gripping him tightly. She had somehow gotten her right arm under his left armpit, going up across his back to grab his right shoulder. The only thing that made Naruto's situation worse at this point was that the girl was now resting her head on his chest. A pleased smile formed on her face as she mumbled something along the lines of, "Comfy." Poor Naruto didn't have time to even run either, as the Kage just then walked into the room to see the pair. He didn't say anything, just making gold particles start to hover in the air before he started walking forward, eyes masked in shadows. The unfortunate blonde shinobi was crying anime tears as the cage stood above him. He vaguely realized the smell of vanilla had been coming from Temari, as the attack commenced. But at least he got to have a brief nap, not to mention a cuddle, before he died.